Hello people, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to the Melodramatic Bookworm family. Months after having asked you whether I should do a vlog for this book for subscriber pick, after you had chosen this as subscriber pick, I am finally going to start reading this book, and I don't know how it's going to go, but I am really excited. I have been excited ever since it released, but this is a book that I wanted to savor. I didn't want to read when I was down. I took my time with it, and apparently it's been too much time, but no more. So today is the 20th of June and I will be starting Babel, an Arcane History by RF Kuang. This is a story of, it's been so long since I read the blurb. Let me read it out here. An act of translation is always an act of betrayal. Oxford, 1836. The city of dreaming spires. It is the center of all knowledge and progress in the world, and at its heart is Babel, Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, the tower from which all the power of the empire flows. Orphaned in Canton and brought to England by a mysterious guardian, Robin Swift thought Babel a paradise, until it became a prison. But can a student stand against an empire? I feel like RF Kuang has this ability to bring everything together in ways that you never thought could be done, and I love that about her. She writes detailed books about strategy and warfare and intense subjects with such intricacy while handling her own education, like doing PhDs and the like, and I admire her so much. I'll be starting this book today. This has like 540 pages. I mean, it will take time. I'm hoping to savor this as I go. I will get to reading this book, which I am so excited for. I can't even begin to. Only just gotten through the author's note. I like how she has tried to explain that this is a work of fiction and that she has changed some points to fit in with the narrative of her book, and I like it, but I'm also a little sad that she has to do that to remind the readers that this is a work of fiction, but I also understand why she's doing it. I just finished the first chapter, and there's this introduction to Robin Swift, the main character. There's Professor Lovell comes to his city and rescues him from a house of death. There's been this whole plague going on over there in Canton. Now he's on his way to London with Professor Lovell. The writing, it's RF Kuang. It's good so far. It's about 11:30 in the night and I've just finished reading chapter 2 of Babel, and my blood has been boiling. I had expected something like this to happen, but There's so much casual racism also. Of course, this is set in the 1820s, 1830s. So I should be expecting something like this. They had this huge superiority complex, which has rather trickled down to a lot of people, in my opinion. But during those times, it was worse. And to read some of the things that these characters are saying eked me out, but it is representation of how things were back then. It's going well, I should say. This one has 542 pages. I'm on page 46 now. But I'm winding down for the night and I will see you on the other side. Hi. 1.5 months after starting this vlog, I'm here to continue the vlog. I swear I haven't forgotten about it. There were like 10,000 other things that I needed to do, as they are usually. I am finally sitting down and reading Babel, and I was able to make note of a few things that really pissed me off, a few things that I really liked in how RF Kuang is handling these things in a historical fiction such as this, replete with languages and translation. I just finished book 1 last night. This is about 90 pages of the story, and it is just the introduction to how the characters are, who the characters are, importance that they might hold in the whole story. But as always, I have my trusty notebook in which I made notes. I have been marking and annotating in that as well. As much as I'm excited to read this book, I'm also completely highly intimidated by it. Did you know that the English word shampoo comes from the Hindi word champi? RF Kuang references that in this, and she talks about Deen Mohammed, who was the first Indian person to move to the UK, I think, and it was there that he started the first shampoo house. He opened it in Brighton, and that is where the word shampoo comes from. I came to know of this a few months ago. Now it pops up everywhere. It's just that phenomenon where once you become aware of something, it just pops up everywhere. I have to keep reminding myself that this is historical fiction and that so many people actually believed in their own racism and sexism, as we will come to know throughout this book. At one point, they go on a tour of University College. That tour is conducted by a senior porter called Billings. He's showing them a frieze. Robin and Remy immediately recognize him. It's Sir William Jones. Robin found the scene depicted in the frieze somewhat discomforting. Jones was positioned at a writing desk, one leg crossed pertly over the other, while 3 figures, clearly meant to be Indians, sat submissively on the floor before him like children receiving a lesson. Billings looked proud. That's right. Here he is translating a digest on the Hindu laws, and there are some Brahmins on the floor to assist him. We are, I believe, the only college whose walls are graced with Indians. But then UNIV has always had a special link to the colonies. And those tigers' heads, as you know, are emblematic of Bengal. Why is he the only one with a table? Remy asked. Why are the Brahmins on the floor? Well, I suppose Hindus preferred it that way, said Billings. They like sitting cross-legged, you see, for they find it more comfortable. Very illuminating, said Remy. I never know. Remy is Indian, by the way. And it might seem a little not proving my point, because right now I am sitting cross-legged. But the absolute audacity to actually believe in what you are saying, that those people are sitting down there because of their own preferences rather than your own sense of superiority, it just, that audacity gets to me each time. And for the University College to claim a link with Indians because of that particular painting, that particular frieze, is rather too in the nose. And I have to keep reminding myself that this is historical fiction set in the early 19th century, when every Brit believed that they were like the pinnacle of humanity and that every Asian was worthy of ridicule. Timing doesn't make it okay. He was a product of his time. No, he was a product of his time. Doesn't matter. He was still what he was. But what makes me the saddest is that even now, even in 2023, there are so many white people who think the same. They don't even want to be in the same room as other races. And that is just sickening. I have encountered a couple of these incidents here in Sydney. I mean, they are not like outright, but it was obvious what those people were thinking. I'm not going to go into all of that right now. My point is, it's 2023. Just be better. But I'm so intrigued by this whole world of Babel and how there are so many different languages and how the intricacies of translation and how they need to be so precise when it comes to translating one sentiment from one language into another, but also how that particular sentiment can get lost in translation. During last year, I read Jhumpa Lahiri's In Other Words, which is a fabulous non-fiction book about translation. And to read this book now, which is fiction, historical fiction at that, which takes me into a whole new world of translation and colonialism and racism and so much. It's just a different kind of joy to be in the world that RF Kuang has constructed. It's just unnerving to see how language is connected with colonialism. It just burns my insides to see how they burn the world. It's weird how a group of words can make you feel things, can make you relate to things. That is the power of language. So this motley group gets to the 8th floor of the tower and they are met with, I think, Professor Playfair, his name is, and he is giving a huge speech about translation and the power of translation and how important it is to keep up the empire. He is boasting about translation and the kind of work that they get up to over there. He starts boasting about things, saying that this is the only place where Hindus and Muslims and Jews and Christians and Buddhists and everybody can exist in peace. But he is also omitting a very important part about those stories. So it's like he's trying to make these words dance for his purpose. And from that place, we move on to the actual thing that weaves under the narrative of this whole book, and that is silver working. And I'm really excited to see how silver working works throughout this book and how Robin, his friends, and all of them, they handle it and how it plays into the plot and what importance it has. And by the end of book 1, there is a friend group that's made hastily together, a grimy pub, a doppelganger, what feels like magic, and I feel like book 1 has done a great job at setting the scene, and it has also given like not so sly hints about where the story is going to go and what one can expect. Hi there, it's late in the night and I have been reading Babel. It is so detailed in how it presents translation, how it presents colonialism, and how it presents racism and sexism, and how the early 19th century was for people who weren't white. So once I started reading today, something happened which according to the blurb will cause a student to stand up against an empire, and to see the extent to which Robin is being pulled or will be pulled in different directions. I think it's going to be very interesting and heartbreaking to see in equal measure. There is one sentence that appears. It says, "We ought not merely to translate each word on its own, but must rather evoke the sense of how they fit the whole of the passage. Verbum e verbo, sensum e sensu." Word for word, sense for sense. Basically, the character is talking about contextual translation. Not every word will fit in every place. And that is why this is a book that is pulling me in, and I'm taking my time with it. It's taken me so many hours to read 40 pages. RF Kuang does not hold back. I'm laughing really at the people who think that this book was an affront to the British. By writing all of this, by writing about colonialism, that RF Kuang was somehow insulting the British. Have you looked at your own history? If you knew, you wouldn't be speaking about all this. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just dumbfounded, and I find it funny that these people are so ignorant to their own country's history and to their own country's doings. I think half of them, they know what's happened, they acknowledge it, and that is how you move forward. You acknowledge it you accept what's been done and all of that, and then you can move forward. But to downright deny trauma that British colonialism has impacted or it has inflicted on so many people is just plain ignorance or arrogance or ignorant arrogance. Whenever I'm stuck at any particular place, I'm reading it multiple times, I want to just commit this to memory. I want to remember what the author is saying in here. It's not only means that it's so informative, I want to read it. That is there, but I also read through multiple times some sections which I feel like I might be misreading them the first time. So I have to read it over and over again to see if I get the same meaning the second time around, or the third time around, or the fourth time around. So there's this one place where Professor Anand Chakravarti is talking to Robin. He goes on to say, with a straight face, I imagine the students need to have a certain upbringing. And then after that, immediately after that, he says with a straight face, but that doesn't mean you're raised properly and all that. Oh boy, Sir Anandji, did you really just? And then you move into interaction with the next professor, in which he is explaining how the silver bars work. So, and you get a slightly better, slightly detailed understanding of how those bars and how the magic actually works. And it's very, very intriguing. It gives you an explanation to a lot of things. The thing that I love the most of all of this, however, is the end of chapter 6. And chapter 6 ends with, but at last he left his mark, which feels like a clever foreshadowing of what's to come. And then in chapter 7, we see Robin's cohort becoming closer, becoming more friendly. They are sitting down and they are having this whole discussion about translation and translation styles. Is so intriguing because it differs from person to person, and what one particular person thinks is important in a translation differs from what the next person thinks. And even if they think the same, the way they are going to implement it is not going to be the same. And I feel like this is such an underthought topic when it comes to translations, because we don't seem to pay much attention to it, even though we have like preferences when it comes to them. So basically we tend to gravitate towards those that appeal to us, either in the way it reads or how close to the original it is. And I'm going to end this clip on a funny note. This cohort is sitting together and they are literally demanding questions. On weekends, they sat at a corner table outside the Walls and Garden Cafe, interrogating Letty on the oddities of English, of which only she was a native speaker. What does corned mean? Robin would demand. What is corned beef? What are you all doing to your beef? And what is a welcher? Victoire would ask, looking up from her latest penny cereal. Letitia, please, what in God's name is a jiggadabber? I don't know why I found this so funny. I laughed at it for a good 5 minutes before I closed the book. Jigger-dubber. Seriously, English. So let me tell you what these are. Robin, Victoire and Rami were all disappointed to learn that corned beef had nothing to do with corn, but with the size of rock salt crystals used to cure said beef. And a welcher is a swindler or a grifter. A jigger-dubber is a thief's slang for a gaoler or a prison warden, a jailer. Jigger means door and dubber means closer. English is weird, and yet here we are, thanks or no thanks to colonization. Anyway, so it's about close to 1:30 in the AM. I'm tired and I'm sleepy and I'm going to go to sleep. Makes more sense now. I have been reading for the past 1.5 hours or so, and I have gotten through 35 pages of Babel. Ow, I hate myself. Okay, so first of all, what I want to talk about is how Robin and his relationship with the people around him grows. He has so many questions he wants to ask because he wants to be sure about what he's doing, but he gets no answers whatsoever, and he becomes antsy when he realizes that no answers are forthcoming. All he wants is a comfortable life, but his conscience won't let him think about peace either, because and this battle within him about between what he wants and what he knows is right is so understandable, admirable even. Many of the people in this story, many of the characters are aces on a normal day, so I can't even begin to imagine what they are going to be like when a conflict arises. What level are they going to stoop to? This book is an ecosystem of its own, in which it combines a bunch of different topics according to what was relevant during the 1800s. First is colonialism, of course, and a big part of it is racism, sexism, and misogyny. Although sexism and misogyny was not just related to colonialism. Then there are societal conventions, then there are languages, their origins and their translations, and then there are human bonds, and then there's the university or student life that it explores, all with the appropriate level of humor and sarcasm. You would think that humor and sarcasm don't have a place in this book, but the way RF Kuang writes, she knows where to apply them and she knows when not to. And the next point that the author makes is about how translation is more difficult than original composition, and I 100% agree with it. Basically what she's saying is that there are so many things that you need to keep in mind when you translate a work, when you bring it from one language into another, because you have to be true to the source. But when you're doing an original composition, you have the freedom to mold words into sentences as you wish, but that's not the case with translation. You cannot just do whatever you want with the work. You have to stay true to the source. And as we move forward, there's more of so many words. There's their histories, their translations, their etymologies, and all of them are told in a very natural manner. It's not like the author is putting everything in one place and saying, see, this is the information, you've got to remember it so that we can move on with the story. No, it is integrated with the dialogue, it is integrated with how things work in the book, and it's done very well. The silver working, its rules, its exceptions, all of this is becoming clear. It is making me wish that it was real. Only if it were real, I wish that it were in the hands of a select few and not in the hands of the obvious power hungry. And the whole motivation of the British Empire for learning languages and for doing all of this is so clear when you read this. I mean, of course, this is historical fiction, but you know that the truth is not far off. And one of my last thoughts was when Professor Lowell is teaching and he talks about how a change in word depicts not just shifts in languages, not just evolution or changes in languages, but also changes in social order. And to see this with examples, to talk about language, to talk about how it evolves, to talk about translations, shifting from one language into another, it just gives me utmost joy. I might not remember 95% of it, but it is something that holds my attention, at least for the time being that I am reading the text, and I love it. Okay, so that was the progress that I made. I'm on page 189 now, chapter 11, and I need to go sleep. Everything hurts, everything aches. I just want to rest. Hi there, today is the 24th of August. I can't help it. I have to take my time. It's such a text that I'm taking 1 hour, 1.5 hours to read 20 pages. You can understand the level of absorption that's going into this book. I am currently at the end of book 2 in this book, in the story, and it has ended at a point where I'm like so unsettled. There is something that I understand from both points of view, both perspectives, but I don't know how it is going to go forward. Okay, let us go in a chronological order. This section started off with me being very, very irritated with Letty. I'm not a fan of her. I never was, and I'm not about to start now, but the way she just dismisses Victoire's concerns and she doesn't have any sympathy and she doesn't even try to understand people who are different from her. I mean, there's a whole lot of context to that as well, but somehow it just grinds my gears. Like, to see her be so flippant annoys me to no end. This has suddenly become grim and dark and ominous, so it's just unsettling. And how Babel deals with the creation and upkeep of the silver bars and how they are linked throughout the country is so goddamn fascinating. And as Robin puts it, he says, an invisible network of meaning stretching over the country. And I don't think Babel and what Babel does can be explained in a better manner. The relatability between those times as well as the current present times that we are living in is so obvious. Humans change, but their core thinking do not change. Truly, the only ones who seemed to profit from the silver industrial revolution were those who were already rich and the select few others who were cunning or lucky enough to make themselves so. It's obvious where we are as a society, as a collective. I want to say, glad to see some things never change, but I'm not glad to see that. And I have a thought about how this part ends, but I cannot probably say anything about it because that would be a spoiler. But all I'll say is that Robin wants to survive, which is completely understandable in a world like that, and someone else is sort of pressuring him, talking about how they don't have the time to do anything, so this is the best time to start. We cannot afford to rest, and we cannot afford to recharge, I mean, etc, 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 risks and all they have to take. And I must say that I see both perspectives. I can understand both perspectives. I mean, understand from an outsider's perspective, but I used perspective too many times and now I don't know how to pronounce the word. Anyway, so that was the end of book 2, and now I need to move on with book 3. I'm on page 223, chapter 13. Sometimes it's not even maths that I'm doing. You know, we used to do number work in KG. Okay, so now I'm going to go have brunch because I haven't had breakfast, and then later I will go to the library because I have to return a couple of books, one of them which I haven't read. I didn't even get the chance to read. It's late night on the 25th of August. It is technically 26th. Only today I've made chunk of progress. I think I've read about 135 pages of Babel so far, but I was also in a lot of pain, so I didn't write them down in my notebook. Instead, I made notes on sticky notes. I finished book 3 and a couple of chapters into book 4, but in this clip I will only talk about book 3. There's one point where the students are so stressed that they start imagining things. It's not supposed to be funny. It is sad how the students are affected so badly that they start seeing things, that they start wondering if what they are seeing or if the people that they are interacting with are real or not. Robin is literally thinking, like all good Oxford upperclassmen, he found himself losing his mind. This is written to be funny, but it actually shows the effort that they're putting in, the intensity with which they are doing the coursework, with which they are studying for the exams, and the immense pressure that is on them to perform because they have seen something happen that just horrified them and they don't want that to happen to them. Chapter 13 ended on a note that left me feeling so warm. I don't have any specific thoughts about it except for the fact that this is exactly, and I say this hyperbolically, that I've thought about a few of my friendships. If only one could engrave entire memories in silver, thought Robin, to be manifested again and again for years to come. Not the cruel distortion of the daguerreotype, but a pure and impossible distillation of emotions and sensations. For simple ink on paper was not enough to describe this golden afternoon. The warmth of uncomplicated friendship, all fights forgotten, all sins forgiven, the sunlight melting away, the memory of the classroom chill, the sticky taste of lemon on their tongues, and their startled, delighted relief. Oh, I find Letty's behavior rather annoying. Keep the discussions of race and color aside. Just put that aside. I'm not even referring to that. Even as people, when someone is telling her some of her concerns, she is quick to dismiss them. She's telling them that they are being dramatic. I mean, those people who are putting forward their concerns, those concerns are valid, especially given the time period. Those concerns, they'll be valid even now because of what those concerns are, but still. And it's just taking everything inside me to not want to jump into the pages and just shake her till her teeth rattle. But I'm hoping that there will be some kind of character development that happens for Letty. Morse code makes an appearance in here, and it all sounded so real that I had to go and check. I had to go and read up on what exactly happened, and it's sort of fact mixed with fiction. Just almost immediately after that, there's something happened that I was not expecting, and I was so shocked. I mean, from here there are a lot of points which will come which are like very unexpected, which we didn't see coming, shocking, etc, etc, etc. But at this point I was like, I'm dreading what's coming, but I also hope that this is a step in the positive direction. The way Lovell is talking about gratitude and that Robin is supposed to be grateful, he's supposed to be indebted to Professor Lovell for giving him a new life, and he's behaving like he's done it out of the good of his heart. When Robin talks about how other countries deserve a bit of the things with the silver thing and all of that, it's just he talks about fair trade and all of that, but he fails to mention the fact, he fails to acknowledge the fact, intentionally of course, that all of this whole resources that he's talking about is fueled by the British pillaging and looting of all those countries that he's talking about. It's as simple as that. And then there's a twist that I did not see coming. I did not expect Robin to do what he did, but I guess he's one character who is discovering himself and discovering what is right and what is wrong. He's finding out for himself what his morals are, what his values are. So yeah, maybe okay, but it's set into motion a lot of other things. So, and then almost immediately this Lovell fellow goes on a racist tirade. I mean, he thinks he's being generous and he thinks he's praising Robin for all of this, but let me read it out to you. You decide. I know you're better than this. You are unlike, I won't take this character's name, but you are unlike this person in every way possible. You're humble, you're bright, and you work hard. You are less corrupted by your heritage than he was. If I'd only just met you, I'd be hard pressed to guess you were a Chinaman or at all. You have prodigious talent, and talent deserves a second chance. He thinks that is praise. At the beginning of chapter 16, there is this particular passage which is so full of despair. It's sort of dark, but there's a beauty in that darkness, there's a beauty in that despair, and it felt really warm. Robin and his cohort are now in Canton. They have been sent on an assignment along with Lovell, of course, and there they meet this complete douchebag, complete racist a-hole of a guy called, I don't remember his first name, but it's Baylis, and he just goes on this, it's so frustrating to see him. Irritating is an understatement because that man needs to be put behind bars. But this is like mid 1800s and this behavior was considered normal. I mean, the English language is theirs and all. Okay, fine. But they do know the meaning of that word, right? They do know how to recognize when something is happening. For example, if a cow is passing, then you'd say that's a cow. So if hypocrisy is happening, then you should be able to recognize that hypocrisy. But no, they read more and more coverage of Canton in London's newspapers of late, which mostly reported the kinds of ignominies British merchants were suffering at the hands of brutal local barbarians. The audacity to call the locals barbarians when they are the interlopers. They are the ones invading their lines. They are the ones looking for inroads. The arrogant audacity. The problem is that the Chinese have convinced themselves that they are the most superior nation in the world. Reminds me of someone else I know. They recognize no laws except their own. You're one to talk. Again, hypocrisy at its finest, like blind to the fact that you're doing the exact same thing you're accusing the others of, and you think you are right because it's you, and you don't see beyond yourself, and that they are wrong because you think they are barbarians, that they are restricting your rights, they are restricting business for you, they are not letting you have free trade. I need a time machine so that I can go back in time and talk to these people. I want to say the best part has come a few pages later, but it is one of the best parts about this book. But what an amazing thing this is that Mr. Baylis, he goes along with Robin to meet the commissioner. He gets a proper dressing down. This commissioner, he was very calm and composed as he took down every single one of Baylis's demands, pointing out the hypocrisy of the British Empire as a whole, because Baylis is there as a representative of the British Empire. And to see that was so satisfying. And at the end of that chapter, something happens. I mean, I knew something drastic was going to happen, that something was going to come off that meeting of Baylis and the commissioner, but I didn't think that it was going to be something so drastic. And again, it is one of the most satisfying things ever. I just hope that Robin doesn't say anything to mess things up. At this point, I was like... And then the end to book 3, which is one of the most shocking things. I want to say that I didn't see that coming, but somehow, I cannot explain how, I saw that coming. And still, I'm like... So that was the end of book 3. I am about 35 pages. It's like I need to know what happens next. I'm on page 375 and I'm at a very twisty, thrilling point, and I just don't know how to react because this is all so adrenaline inducing. At least at the beginning of book 4, I thought that now this has happened and I want to see how it progresses, but then it became a little boring in the middle. For the past few pages, however, it's just like picked up so much. This was a shock to me that this even happened. It's like 2:53 a.m. and I might be losing it. I don't know if I would have been as shocked as I was just now if I were reading this during the day, but I think I would. I want to give this story a little more credit, or all the credit that it deserves. I was also going, Robin, it's a trap, it's a trap, it's a trap, don't do it. Don't give everything away. I thought they were going to get caught. What exactly are the stakes? What exactly will happen when this whole plot is uncovered? I'm just too scared. So towards the beginning of book 4, it's a lot of hullabaloo, but it's like they snapped into this mode where you go like, okay, you are such a good friend of mine, I will help you do anything. And this is what this cohort is now doing. So the shock from the end of book 3 is now sitting under the shock of how this friendship between these 4 people has grown. It has evolved. It's been over 3 years in the story, but Letty is just not willing to see the world from Robin, Rami and Victor's perspective, even though it's all there, out there in the glaring light of day. Absolutely pig-headed. She's so stubborn. And towards the end of that chapter, we see what Babel is, how Babel treats its students, and what it expects from them. And it's a little chilling because of what it does. Something isn't right. People will be like, why do you bring all of that? That was way back into the past. Just because it happened in the past, you can't turn a blind eye to it, right? You can't think that, okay, just because it's in the past, let's act like nothing has happened. No, that's not how it works. That's not how history works. That's not how the world works. It has a small memory and Letty, collect yourself, please. And at one point, the lies became so careless, it feels like, because they're telling one lie at this point, they're telling one lie at that point, they're telling another lie at this point. What if everything explodes in their faces? I know that easy contact wasn't a thing back then, but aren't you scared that people will find out somehow? I mean, yes, they are scared, but you at least be consistent. The last of my reactions before I completely imploded over that twist that came. There's a class difference also between these four. I mean, mostly between Letty and then Robin, Rami and Victoire. They are talking about something and Victoire asks, how much does it take to maintain a household for the month? If it's just the three of them, Letty thought for a moment. Only about 10 pounds. 10 pounds back then was like a huge sum. But Victoire blanched. Rami sighed and rubbed at his temples. Robin reached to pour himself a glass of brandy. Look at the complete dissonance in their reactions. After that, things picked up. They got really interesting. I really want to continue reading, but it's 3:10. So I'm just going to wind this up and go to sleep. So yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for the final leg of the Babel journey. You know what pisses me off even more is the fact that these men, they call everybody else animals, they call everybody else barbarians, but the actual barbarians are them. There's this person who treats Robin in lockup like the worst way possible, and when Robin fights back, nothing much. He topples over and then he gets out and then he straightens his necktie and goes, good lord, Richard was right. Animals, the lot of you. Do you hear the words coming out of your mouth? I need therapy after this book. It's 3:20 of the 26th of August. I just finished book 4 and I am a wreck. See, I knew that something of this proportion was coming. I knew that something was going to destroy me. I do have a couple of things that I want to talk about, but they seem so frivolous right now. How am I going to recover from this book is the question. Every single mention of how this cruelty, how the British colonizers treated any race that was dissimilar to them, it just boils my blood, and that boiling of my blood is just, I just don't know how to handle that. It's all intentional, I know, because they really truly believed that they were superior, and because of that they thought that everybody else was inconsequential, everybody else existed to serve their purpose, and it just hurts my heart. Like, oh, what to do? What can... Like, all the notes that I've made, doesn't seem right to be talking about all of those, because the weight of what has just happened, it's just weighing down on my brain, and it's like I'm getting a headache from repressing all of those emotions. Next note is of something that I thought would happen, and I was like, I know something's going to happen, I know this person is going to do something. I wrote stuff like, I don't know why I feel this, I know this person might not actually. Just a few pages later, that's exactly what happened. That person, oh, how can you... In the next page, there's this point where I'm wondering if the way I think about Robin saying these things, like being cautious, he'll be like, but if this is a war, then you've lost, or how do you think you're going to do that? Don't you think that this is... If Robin says the same thing, I'm quick to jump to his defense. But if Letty says the exact same thing, then it feels to me like I become really antagonistic towards her. Maybe it's because she's a white person, she's a privileged white person in that world, in the world of those times, but somehow I feel like there's this duality of me treating the same expressions coming from different people. One white, one not white. Imagine someone not seeing you as human. And there's this other guy who comes into the picture, and again, he thinks of Britain as the pinnacle of humanity, that they have everything good in the world. Do you think England should be punished then for daring to use those natural gifts given to us by God? Shall we leave the East in the hands of corrupt degenerates who would squander their riches on silks and concubines? Or shall we lead Britain hurtles towards a vast glowing future? This man literally called the governing people in the East lazy aristocrats, indolent lazy aristocrats. He thinks he is right. He thinks Britain is on the right track, or was on the right track at that point. And this is where my last note came in, because after that it was pretty much quick. There were so many shockers that came along. I didn't even annotate properly because I was like, what? No, this can't be happening. But it did happen, and now I'm like this close to breaking down. I mean, I've already broken down off camera. I have about 100 pages to go. Done. It is late in the night. It's 1:10 a.m. and I've just finished reading Babel. I don't even know how to react. I felt so many emotions as I read this book. I felt anger, I felt joy, I felt sorrow. Towards the end, it's just despair. I don't know what else to say. I knew I was going to be wrecked by this book, and it has done that. I remember writing at the beginning that I'm so excited to start this book that I'm just staring at the insides without registering anything. Hopefully I can recover enough that I can make headway into what promises to be a fantastic journey. I want to say that this is indeed a fantastic journey, because it is, but there's so much pain behind it. There's so much weight, there's so much heaviness. I can't hold this, so I'm going to put it back here. This book, it was like I was transported back to the 1830s. I mean, I know that I don't technically know how those times were, but it just feels like I was there as I watched Robin, Rami, Letty and Victoire go about their lives. But even if I was reading about the banter, even if I was just thinking about how they were gelling well with each other, how their friendship formed, and the whole history of colonization, the whole history of translation, and what is going on at Babel, at the Tower of Babel, and this book follows the fall of that tower, and the way RF Kuang has imbibed everything, and she has taken these things from so many different perspectives and she has brought them together, that it just feels like the book drains you. I feel lost right now. One, because I finished the book. Two, because of what the book is about. There are a few points though that I was like, in some sections the storytelling becomes a little dragged. In others it becomes very fast paced, which I'm not complaining about the fast paced sections. I'm complaining about the dragginess. Like, it becomes a little repetitive. But if you look at it in the bigger picture, I feel like all of that I can let go of because it touches on so many important subjects. And this is a book that's, for me, at least at the moment, it's going to be a 5-star read. Maybe I will change my mind in the next coming however many days, but at the moment it's a full 5-star read. It's emotional, it is informative, it uses historical points and facts and figures, and it uses all of them in a fictional story that, oh, it's so great. The thing is, as the story progressed, it just kept getting more shocking, more heartbreaking. There was absolutely unapologetic things that were happening, and these shocks, they are necessary to the story perhaps, but it just felt like my heart was being wrenched out every single time, and I was like, no, don't do this. But who am I to demand such things? Towards the end, as Robin's character evolves, I remembered the moral dilemmas, the moral questions that the author raised in the Poppy War series as well, because a main character, the protagonist, doesn't mean that they always have to make the right decisions. They are going to be led astray. They are human after all, and that it happened to Rin, and here also it's happening to Robin. But the thing is, this guy is oscillating from one extreme end to the other, and I'm so split about what to think of him, because there's so much that he needs to take into consideration given the situation. But then again, I can also understand why he would swing that way. I think that's about it. I just had a few notes, especially because I was nearing the end of the book and I was just so invested in it that I wanted to finish it without distracting myself. And overall, the book is fantastic. I don't think I have to say anything else about it because it covers so much ground in these 542 pages that it's difficult to place a finger on what exactly I loved about it. Is it the atmospheric writing? Is it the brilliant storytelling? Is it the characters that you come to love? Is it the characters that you come to understand? Is it those very characters who are so human, who are so close to the people that you would know in real life, and they are not some angels that might do this, might do that, they can do no wrong, etc, etc, etc. They are humans, they make mistakes, they learn along the way, they have their concerns, they have their troubles, they have their anxieties, and all of this comes together in a book that rips apart colonialism. It rips apart what that whole institution stands for, what it has done to the world, how it pillaged, it looted, how its hypocrisy was made so obvious. Also in this process, it makes clear the inherent racism that comes with talking about, oh, why are you overreacting? I was just joking. So yes, that is the successful completion of Babel, way later than I wanted to. But it took me so much time because it is so heavy with information and meaning, and I did not want to rush through it. I did not want to give you a vlog that just skims over these things about the book. Okay, so 2 months after starting this book, I have finally finished reading it. So what did you think of this vlog? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Have you read Babel? What did you think of it? If you haven't read it, will you go and read this book after watching this vlog? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please like it and share it to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.